I guess it wasn't until, that moment when I was in Prague and I met the founders of Star Now, and they were in their lounge with their computers. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And they were like, we've made this website. It solves the problem of people being able to find auditions. And I'm like, oh, I know that problem. I understand that problem. Oh, and you're using technology to do it. That is so cool. I want to use technology to solve problems.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host, Carla Duke, and today I'm joined by Jessica Manins. Jessica is the co-founder and CEO of Beyond, an award-winning VR game studio based in Wellington, New Zealand that is exploring immersive technology and intuitive social experiences. Today, we'll be talking about their recently announced project Combonauts, a project in collaboration with Weta Workshop and musician Tiki Tane, hearing Jessica's story and journey into games, what drives her, what she sees as the future of games and entertainment, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 11 of season 4 of the Zero to Play podcast. All right, welcome Jess to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so this is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for months now. So I'm really grateful to finally have your time. Thank you so much for being available and having a chat with me. There's a lot of things I want to talk to you about, so we might kind of glaze over some topics. But first off, the kind of thing I want to get out of the way is Combonauts, which is the next project that Beyond is kind of working on. I know it's still very early stages, so there probably isn't a lot you can say, but if there is anything that you can say about it and anything, whether it's the gameplay, your vision behind it, etc., I'd love to know. If not, we'll just skip that and then await more news in the future.
No, I can totally talk about it. So, firstly, it came about during our very first COVID lockdown. So we had already been talking to Weta Workshop about doing a location-based VR game because that's what we were originally kind of working on. We made Oddball, and they were they were working on Unleashed and some other kind of location-based experiences. And then COVID hit and the whole thing changed for all of us around the world. And of course, locations were closed. And so together during COVID, we started chatting about, well, what about if we collaborated on a consumer VR game? Gaming was going up during lockdown. We all, both companies were really passionate about social connections and the importance of that for our well-being, and that how games plays a major role in that. And watching, the Oculus Quest just completely sell out during that first lockdown because, the second one had come out. Mm-hmm. We were already working on the Quest. They'd done their AR project with Dr. Gorbort. And so we were like, let's do a VR game together. This is a great opportunity to collaborate. And so we just shooted some ideas around, it wasn't, quickly get into something, urgently. Played around with things that were important to us, which was multiplayer. For us, that's always, like I said, kind of that social aspect is really key. And Oddball, our other game, was multiplayer, and we love watching people play together. We wanted to do something that was just a little bit silly. We like silliness. We like not taking ourselves too seriously, having fun, being able to giggle. We like content that is as inclusive as possible, that isn't too violent. There's already enough zombie shooting games out there. So yeah, we kind of riffed off some ideas, and in the end, we have what we're still making right now, along with, we both have lots of other projects on. So it's a real passion project that our two companies are doing together. Is what we're calling Combonauts. And, you can jump on our website and there's a little bit of information there, but it's basically a multiplayer game where we're pitting players against the clock and one another to collect the most kind of cosmic paperweights that they can, and please their overlord. So you are a Combonaut in the game, and it's really a fast-paced party game for friends, designed for the Oculus Quest.
I love it. I love just even your excitement talking about it. It sounds very visual, very exciting. What are the like? Can you talk on like the responsibilities between what Weta Workshop are kind of providing for the project and what Beyond are, and where that kind of line is?
Yeah, so originally, because a lot of mostly our studio were more skilled in Unreal development, and we have a lot of experience in virtual reality gaming. And Weta, of course, are well known for their amazing art. So originally, the collaboration was very much, Weta, if you do the art, we will do the dev, basically. Yep. And that would be kind of how the collaboration would work. Of course, as we've gone on, paths and lines have crossed, and a lot of the design work has been, a collaboration. We actually have an in-house artist that has helped on one of the levels. So yeah, it's kind of, but you could still say that, originally it was kind of art and then dev.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah, do you have any kind of time when you're planning on having it released? Is there any deadline, or like you're saying, it's just a passion project and when it comes, it comes?
Yeah, I mean, we just want to make sure we get it right. And so we would obviously love for it to come out this year. There's also, it will be a little bit dependent on the platform and whether or not we do decide to go on to other platforms as well. Getting, on the Oculus Quest store is quite a process. And so we're a little bit unsure, but we're very near the end of it. And so we're really in that polishing and lots of play testing and lots of QA going on stage of the game.
Awesome.
So maybe this year.
Cool. That'd be really exciting to see. I love how you mentioned just how important it is for things to be kind of fun and silly, and those are kind of like what I feel the principles of like a Beyond game are. And I'd love to know if there are any other like principles that you like to follow that are kind of under the Beyond brand that you think are worth mentioning. Just like, the kind of things that you really believe in, like you mentioned social experiences, things like that.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, so social has always been really important. In all of the work that I've done and that we've done here at Beyond, it has been social. Obviously, being able to physically come together is one of the things that I enjoy most about what we do and in life, whether it's, going to the movies or going to a theme park or any of those kind of things that together we can do as friends. But then the beauty of virtual reality is that we can be an avatar and be whoever we want and come together with our friends in these virtual worlds. Mm-hmm. So there's this really lovely, nice way that it kind of crosses over into that. And then, I don't know. I think collaboration's always been a really important kind of pillar or value. Which you'll see in a lot of the work that we do, is that we are collaborating with others. I'm really passionate about the Kiwi economy, that we should be trying to employ people here. That's a really big deal for me, that we want to grow, whatever sector it is. I'm obviously passionate about creative technology, the two things and how they go together. And so that's a really important thing for me and for our company, and we always, I don't know, we try to like not have too much ego and be really open to working with others and collaborating and going, you're really good at that and we're really good at this, so together let's come together and make something special. And we don't have to own it all, but if we keep it in New Zealand and the IP is created in New Zealand, then that's a really magical thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a few questions just about how you came about meeting Anton, your co-founder, and like how that process of building VR has been. But first, I just want to ask about do you have like a fair with I mean, I'm in Auckland and we're still locked down. In Wellington, it's probably a bit more lenient with like maybe location-based experiences happening again. Are you kind of worried about the future going more virtual? And like, with this project with Combonauts, you've kind of leaned into like a consumer product. Are you hoping that the world kind of goes back to normal where you can have more in-person experiences or go to theme parks and things like that? Or are you accepting where the future is going? Like might be going.
I'm so hopeful that we are able to reopen and go to those theme parks and get on those roller coasters together. That for me is, I think, really important, and I hope that that is what happens in the future. And absolutely, I'm leaning into the consumer and the way that we can blend the two together. I would love for there to be more location-based things happening in the future, and I see that. Already see places like 2-Bit Circus, which is where we first started in LA. They're back open, but they've done a hybrid thing. They have an online version. They created a platform where they could do that, and then they of course have the physical space still here. So I think we're just going to see this real blend and hybrid kind of models working.
Right. So with the kind of technology that you're using with, the Oculus Quest and things like that, do you see the kind of experience that you get as a location-based experience? Can you ever see a virtual world mimicking that, so that you and I could have an experience by playing oddball from a different city, but have that same connection that you love so much about LBEs? Or do you feel like that's not physically possible?
Yeah, no, I think it is possible. I think we're already seeing that happen. Some of the first ones that came out that spring to mind is a Museum of Other Realities during lockdown last year, where people were starting to come in together and look at art shows and go to museums together, go to fashion shows together. I think we're absolutely going to see that. I think there's already some really fascinating, you've already had a chat about the whole metaverse thing, that's the big buzzword and key thing that everybody's working on at the moment. Well, Facebook just said they're employing 10,000 people of it to work on their metaverse. But that we're creating these online virtual worlds where that are social, that we can come together and we can play oddball or play whatever it is or do whatever we want within that world.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really great to hear. And I love, even from your perspective, that it's, entirely possible. And what I love is that the work you are doing for experiences like Oddball are transferable, and it's like not like that work is all lost, because you're still figuring out how to create fun in like a small environment and that sense of connection, which is really cool to see. So you came from film and TV, which I think is an interesting path. I came from there as well, where I thought I would have a career in that space, and I ended up finding more stability in games. I'd love to know what your kind of path was that triggered you to kind of look over to games. Was there any kind of like moment or experience that you can touch on that made you kind of look elsewhere when you were kind of deep in the film industry?
Well, I guess I actually, before I kind of moved into VR, I actually moved out of the film and TV industry into startup and technology. And so I guess that's then kind of how I then transitioned. There wasn't kind of that, like, I'm deep in film and now I'm like games and VR is where I want to be. I studied television production, and I made theater shows, and I did behind the screen and in front. My first job was as an editor, and then I worked at, Edinburgh Fringe Festival there doing lighting and sound, and came back and did acting, so I did that kind of whole spectrum of things within the sector, because that's what you kind of have to do as well, and making short films and pitching web series. I was in a children's theatre show, a group, for many years.
Wow.
We make music videos for kids, and
you did everything.
It did it all, because you kind of do, right? You do it all. But it was just, I landed into a job, which I got very lucky. I feel very fortunate, and sometimes there is just luck. And that was working at Star Now, which is a New Zealand made online auditions and jobs website for the entertainment industry. And that just sparked my passion for technology, the use of it to solve problems, growing the New Zealand economy, waitlist kind of technology, doing it here from Wellington. For me, that set something off inside me that made me move away from wanting to have to work directly in film or TV and contribute in different ways. Which, and I've said this to a few people before, it's this transition of where you start to think about your why and your purpose, and it's less about being doing like, I am going to be an actress, and it's more about, why do I want to do that, and I want to, and thinking about that purpose. And so from Star Now, I was very driven to be involved in my own company, to create my own company, but then also to be involved in the startup sector in New Zealand and to grow the economy and to help others. And so that led me to Biz Dojo, where I was regional manager there, which led me to meeting 8i and Tony Moyes and the team there. And that was actually my first introduction to VR. And I put on an event for them, some others, to kind of get some exposure for people. And we hosted it at the Biz Dojo, and I played around with what they were doing. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, it's so cool. And it's got so many different applications that it's, that we could use it for. And at that time, I didn't necessarily think, oh, I want to make games in VR, I just knew I wanted to use that technology in an interesting and unique way. And that took me on a path to setting up a co-working space, specifically around research and development in VR and AR, which is how I met Anton. He was one of our first residents there with his new company Mixed. And just I wanted to explore the technology. And then, of course, coming back to what you're passionate about and what you love, which for me and my why is I want to entertain people. I want to make them happy and bring joy and socially connect people together. And, gaming and does that for me. Specifically coming up with Beyond and the games that we are doing here actually came about because Anton and I were at the Augmented World Expo over in America, and we had been making all of these little applications for different people in VR and AR, and we were like, we want our own thing, we're going to do our own thing. It's not sustainable, just to be doing all these products for other people. There's not a lot of money to be made in it, and it's not ours, even if it's our own company. And so we went there kind of with this purpose, which was we're going to look and see and get inspired by what people are doing here, and see if there's anything that we can bring back and adapt and do ourselves.
I love that. Smart.
Yeah. Wow. I learned that from Star Now. Those guys were all ex-Trade Me developers.
Right.
And Trade Me but came because they saw what eBay was doing. Like innovation isn't necessarily about like making up a brand new thing.
You just wake up one day.
I just wake up on one day and decide I'm going to do this brand new amazing thing. It's like we look at ideas and we take parts of them and we adapt them, and we add our our own little sprinkle of goodness on top. And they have an awesome thing over there at that expo, which is a playground. And it's where you can experiment and play with new things in VR and AR. And there's obviously a huge area which is dedicated to enterprise software and hardware. I tried on probably 30 different AR glasses, while I was there. Some that went bust, others that are now doing really well that weren't there. And I tried this multiplayer. Well, Anton and I tried this multiplayer VR collaborative game. It was set up with an OptiTrack system out in this playground, backpack PCs, probably an HTC Vive, I think. And it wasn't a complicated game. The graphics weren't particularly anything special, but the four of us walked around and did this little thing in this game together. And that was that moment of like, this is the future.
Cool.
This is so cool. And surely looking around at the technology is going to get better than this. And we can do something in this space that is way easier and to set up and much more, affordable, isn't going to cost $300,000 for this huge, camera system and whatnot. And that kind of sparked, I guess, that vision to create something that would be in the multiplayer VR gaming space.
Wow, that's really fascinating that you had that, that chapter of research and development that you just you knew that this space, there was interesting things happening. Wow, yeah, that's really interesting. Can I ask, did you to survive during this time to because a lot of people might want to do something like this but can't justify it because to pay bills and things. How did you manage that around that time to have this chapter of looking out at what was happening in the world and then having time to kind of go back and plan for yourself? Like what was that time in your life? And do you have any advice for people that want to kind of pursue that similar chapter in theirs?
Yeah, so I mean, it ranged. Like at some stages, it was just tricky in terms of, not earning much at all. And that was a challenging, with a mortgage and a family, being an entrepreneur who is not in their 20s, your life situation is slightly more difficult. So one piece of advice is if you are young, just go experiment and do things now, because it does get more complicated and a bit harder as you get older and you have those responsibilities and you have to earn a certain amount of money, or it feels like you need to earn a certain amount of money. The other thing was I was quite fortunate. I could pick up a few contracts. So I actually picked up a really interesting one where I got to travel to Mauritius in Africa, and I was helping to establish a fintech blockchain incubator accelerator over there with some VCs who were looking at Mauritius as a hub for blockchain.
Wow.
And so I was really doing kind of the initial like roadmap, relationships, how would it work, what would it cost, building out that business model, kind of a feasibility study, if you will. And that was well paid and enabled me to be able to do that part-time, and then at the same time do a lot of this R&D, VR and AR work, which really wasn't, I wasn't really getting paid to do.
Wow. So you mentioned blockchain. What year was it that you did this? Because it must have been years ago.
Yeah, we're talking, I guess, I'm not very good with years, though, like 4 years ago.
But that's still before blockchain was, me personally, kind of seen in my bubble, which is probably a good segue to another project that Beyond is working on called Fluf World, which is related to NFTs. And, I'm kind of fascinated about this space too. I've spoken to a few people on the podcast about it. And it is a very exciting space, and it feels like it's right up your alley with this kind of startup innovation kind of passion that you have. So it's really cool that you're in the space. Can you talk a bit about Fluf World and what you your display picture on Twitter is the rabbit, like the NFT. So yeah, talk to me a bit about Fluf World and what what the vision is behind it and how you're a part of it.
Yeah, Fluffworld, so cool. I love this project so much. This project, again, this came about because, well, for a few reasons, but because of a friendship that I had with Aaron McDonald, who is one of the co-founders over at Non-Fungible Labs, and is well known in the blockchain world for centrality and a lot of the work he's done. And I met him probably a year, maybe again 4 years ago or so. We actually went away on a weekend together that had been put on by Datacom, which was about how can New Zealand startups work with corporate New Zealand. So they put together I think there might have been 4 startup companies and then 4 corporates. So, kind of the big guys and small guys, and how could we for the New Zealand economy come together and work together? Because it's often really hard to get startups working with corporate New Zealand. And he had just raised some money and was doing amazing stuff in blockchain world. And I was doing, well, I hadn't raised any money, but I was doing some stuff in VR. And so so we kind of had stayed in touch, and I guess, just over the years have watched what each other have been doing. And then, he hit me up and was like, we're doing this fluff thing. Take a look, let me know if you're interested in collaborating. And as you know, I love collaborating, and it's another New Zealand company, and look at what they're doing. And it's like, so cool, and NFTs were new to me, weren't something that I had been following. I've been so focused on VR, and in some ways almost too focused that I kind of missed a little bit of probably some opportunities, but I think I'm picking them back up now, of how these two cross over so perfectly together. And together the collaboration is that we are making the virtual burrows that the Fluff World fluffs, the rabbits, will be able to live in and eventually breed in. So, there's this utility there, and what we are doing is we're building, we're doing both the creative kind of design of these spaces. So we have a full creative team here. We've grown in the last year, which is really awesome. So we don't just have developers, we have a full art team.
Wow.
And then we're developing the app. So we're going to start with a mobile approach, because that's the most people will have a mobile phone. And then at the same time, we're building out the VR version. So we'll be able to together have those. And yesterday I walked around in VR. We've got a room back here, which is our big warehouse, free roam VR room. And so we just kind of popped the model into an oddball, kind of into oddball. So walking around with my oddball characters in the Fluf World burrow, and it's pretty cool. It's really cool.
Wow.
It's beautiful spaces, and and it's an exciting collaboration. They have a really amazing team, a really amazing roadmap. It's very different from what I think a lot of people who might have originally kind of written NFTs off as like, it's a JPEG. It's it's just a Twitter photo, whatever. That's really not what Fluff World is about. The partnerships they have every few days. Brooke, who's the leaker in the company, he's the one that leaks something, is announcing a new amazing partnership. And there's just it's really incredible. It's they're probably one of the first, I think, to have 3D models of the characters that you fully own all the commercial rights to. You can do whatever you like once you have bought one of these characters. So it's really interesting into now what that looks like for gaming.
Totally.
People
Yeah.
own their own characters. I mean, people are already doing it, but and this isn't a real high quality world. We're not looking at the real pixelated kind of ones that you might have seen.
Yeah, I mean, any conversation to do with, I feel like NFTs is always the same but a little bit different. Like every different project you talk about is the same but a little bit different. There's NFT games that exist, but so is Fluff World meant to be a sort of like gaming experience, or is it more like a virtual world? Like, is there a gaming element where there's game designers on board and there's like a way to win? Or is it more just like this virtual world for your NFT?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be game elements built in the future, but it is much more the virtual world, and I guess the metaverse world that you will be able to bring your characters into, that you'll be able to breed so that you can create other, NFT characters. There's the play to earn, model. There is the opportunity for kind of collaborations with other people and brands, potential for other characters to be able to come into these worlds. And of course, for us, we are about games and social, that social element. So we're absolutely looking at this roadmap of how we can make this a space that is fun to be in, to play in, that is social, multiplayer, all of those things we just talked about.
Totally. Yeah, I find that really interesting when just talking about the games industry. It definitely seems like when talking about crypto, it's this whole like fintech layer. A lot of the people exploring the technology are technologists first, not really game designers first. So I'm really excited that Beyond is on board a project like this, and to see kind of how that develops, because it needs to be people from the general public need to become interested in it, and I guess, how do you see that in terms of like the market for this kind of product? Do you see people that want to make money getting involved in this, or do you see this as being something that anyone that that is interested in the community would want to become a part of?
Yeah, I think it's I can't necessarily speak for those guys, but I know they're really keen to make things as accessible as possible, as we have, that it's not, trying to just do these cash grabs and make things that are only for a small few people. So there will always be, accessible access, to these. But of course, for many people, this is a really wonderful, cool, interesting way for people to make money, which is great, because we're all needing to find new ways to bring revenue in and in creative ways. I don't know if you asked me something else then.
No, we can move on from that. I think, yeah, that's a good enough summary of Fluff World, and I'm excited to know like when the the mobile version exists, or when getting access to the NFTs and becoming part of the community and stuff. I'm really interested in just keeping an eye on that space.
Yeah, I mean, just jump into the Discord as well. I'd recommend anyone, if you want to watch great comms, an amazing community, well run, like supportive, just it's one of those ones that I think, it's a benchmark of quality community management, and it's definitely a good way of getting insights. And you'll see they'll drop all they have a leak channel, so you just go into the leaks and see exactly what's coming up.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that community management side is really important, just to build that community and grow with the community, to actually have that as a part that's there's someone that's hired to look after that, which sounds interesting. I'll definitely check it out. Are Beyond hiring for any roles that you would like to promote, and see if anyone listening might line up?
Yeah, of course. Well, we are looking for an intermediate developer, so a programmer. So if you're interested in working in virtual reality, NFT world, then definitely come have a chat to us. We've just hired a new 3D artist, but again, I would say if you're in the creative world and you love VR, just pop me an email, like send me an email, jessica@beyond.fun. Tell me what you're up to, because if you're passionate about it, I'm much more interested in people that are passionate and have initiative, than those that necessarily have a qualification or XY experience. And there will definitely be growth happening in our company in the next few years. So I don't want to say there's not, any particular roles, just hit me.
Definitely. I don't know if this is an appropriate question or not, but is Beyond kind of seeking funding? Like, what stage are you at in your business? Like you say, you're growing. Are you at any important stage of growth that's worth mentioning?
No, we've had capital. We raised capital already, so that's definitely helped us bring on some amazing artists. We've just recently hired a community manager ourselves, so they'll be starting soon. So yeah, I guess we're in, we're kind of like, we're in a really nice phase where we're just being able to be really creative, people that we needed and have had to go without. And of course I will still wear lots of hats, but hopefully not as many hats as I have been wearing.
Yeah, so just an interesting question that came to my mind. Do you feel like you just your passion in kind of the startup space and innovating, finding like the next big thing, do you feel like you are planning on staying with Beyond for a long time? Like, have you kind of changed your perspective a bit, and do you see Beyond as like your baby, or are you going to constantly be looking for that next thing? I'm just interested to know like your perspective now with the kind of path that you went on, and then establishing Beyond. Like, has that changed at all?
I'm not planning on going anywhere soon, because I've got such exciting things and so many amazing people that I'm working with now, and I'm in a really great place where it was hard. We had a very long, hard time. COVID pretty much almost killed us. Really had to innovate, really had to work hard to be where we are today. Mm-hmm. It has not been easy. I might sound, like chipper and happy now, but I could tell you there were many days where I was, in tears, where, things were over, or, I'm down to not being, that last dollar in the bank account. Mm-hmm. Situation I have absolutely lived through that. So to now be in a situation where our work, we're proud of our work, we feel like, we've gained some really fantastic partners and relationships, and we've earned those, is definitely a position that I feel privileged to be in now, and I want to soak it up and stay in this, and I want to deliver really great projects that people love. And so for now, there's not me looking at, there's so many exciting new things already that I don't need anything else to on the horizon. But I am an entrepreneur, and I do love new things, and I would absolutely, in the future, I couldn't say that there I wasn't going to do something else, because who knows what's going to come out next year, and is it going to be really exciting and amazing opportunity that we're not going to want to be a part of.
Exactly. I think you picked the best industry that's constantly evolving, and there's new toys to play with every year, which is cool. So like every kind of project, I just love the name Beyond, because whatever you guys decide to do, it's forward thinking, and it's kind of looking at what is that next step. So that's awesome to see. One interesting question that I love asking guests, because it sometimes gets it's a very open-ended question, but what is the definition of a game to you? It's something I'm curious, just with your experience.
Oh, that is the definition of a game to me. I mean, the word play like comes to mind. Something that that ignites, or enables you to play.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's a really good point. Another interesting thing is I love how your path kind of came from technology to games. And I'm just wondering, did you ever play games as a kid growing up? Most, indie developers that I speak to played games from a very, very early stage. But I'm just wondering, like, were you exposed to games at all growing up?
Yeah, I was a big Monkey Island fan, like massive fan. I was fortunate that my dad became one of the first computer teachers at his secondary school, because computing, they came out, something was like, there's an Apple computer and who wants to be the computer teacher? And my dad put his hand up and said, so we very early on had a computer in our household. So again, real privilege. I grew up in the country in Te Horo, but we were out there with this computer, and I was online playing games a lot from an early age. My brother is both my brothers are engineers. My older brother was programming on that computer pretty early on. Mostly they were like silly little, like just written text games, so it would be like, and then mostly they were trying to be mean to me. So it would be like, what is your name? Yes, it'd be like, you are dumb. Like, oh. Like, what is your name? Sam, which is my brother. You are the king. You are the best.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's awesome. And what that must have really shaped up your kind of perspective of technology, living out in the country, yet having technology. Is there anything else from that kind of experience that you kind of realize has played a lot in your kind of perspective of the space now?
Yeah, I mean, it's at the time you just don't even really think about it. But I was online on these little messenger chat things with people, dial up going, the old modem from a very early age, and so it was all very natural, I guess, for me as I went through my life, that computers and technology was a part of it. Yeah, I don't know.
Did you feel like technology was accepted, or because I mean, the like time that you grew up as well, I feel like it wasn't as, I guess, mainstream. Did you feel like there was a lot of negativity towards technology that you've had to kind of overcome or think about a lot?
I mean, I was so focused on wanting to be an actor that the technology side of things for me was never really a big deal growing up. I mean, I guess I was lucky that, and then I got to try things and experiment. And my dad was one of those people that was always like, you can do whatever you want, just just try it, and if it fails, who cares, like whatever, and my mum and dad supported me so much in enabling me to be that person that said, no, I'm not going to go down a traditional path. I'm going to be an actor, and so then I kind of had ignored technology, and I guess it wasn't until that moment when I was in Prague and I met the founders of Star Now, and they were in their lounge with their computers, and I was like, what are you guys doing? And they were like, we've made this website. It solves the problem of people being able to find auditions. And I'm like, oh, I know that problem. I understand that problem. Oh, and you're using technology to do it. That is so cool. I want to use technology to solve problems, and I want to do it. But, I guess, yeah, I'd never really thought about it, how, I don't know, there's no negativity towards technology in my world. I was very lucky in that way.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. With your experience in acting, I can imagine when you're in these virtual worlds, you must have this this interest in being like as expressionate as you can. Like, are you exploring like mocap suits and like the future of expressing yourself and making that realism come through in a virtual space? Like, is that a passion of yours to innovate on?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing some stuff in that space. Originally, yes, so with Oddball, when we first started, I wanted it to be almost a theatrical experience that moved from the real life theater into the VR world. So I created a host character, and the host was a real character and then changed into the virtual character.
Wow.
So when you met the host, which of course was me at the time,
right, I see.
Startup, it's like you would meet me and I would talk to you and bring you in, and then I would move, and then I'd put the headset on, and I would be that, that character who would then take you into the game. Because I love that. But of course, we're using the Oculus Quest, and the characters' mouths are certainly weren't moving or anything and talking. Yeah. But in many ways it didn't matter. We realized a lot when we first made Oddball that if people are having a good time, they aren't looking at the detail. They're not criticizing the fact that your mouth and your facial expressions aren't moving at the same time as the voice is coming. They're not looking at the detail, that your walls or the textures and the art isn't some kind of amazing thing that you've built. Mm-hmm. They're there for the experience. And if you give them a good experience and they're having fun, then those other things don't matter at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. In a previous episode, I was speaking with John Epler, who's the narrative director of BioWare, and he made this is where I first heard it, that theater is the closest medium to games in terms of interactivity, and good theater is one, that breaks the fourth wall, where the actors are engaging with the audience. And I feel like some of that's kind of coming through with these projects. Do you kind of agree with that statement? Did you find the interactivity from theater crossover well into games? And do you, how do you feel about that statement?
Yeah, I do agree with that statement, and I think it's really true. I mean, it's even just when we first started doing some 360 video, it was like, well, in theater, we're always the whole environment, we're always looking around the entire environment, it's not the same as 2D film or whatnot. And so of course you care about everything that is around you, and how are you going to position things and how you're going to interact with those things. And yeah, I think, and not just even theater, I just think about, it's just real world, right? So much of it is what are the real world interactions that you have? And I think one of the best ways, if you're interested in VR, is just go to time zone or somewhere and look at the physical things that you do and you play with, and how they actually how you can kind of, transition them into a VR environment, because it is that interactivity, it is that, that full experience.
Yeah, no, fascinating. I love it. I love that you're actively working on projects in the space as well. I'm not talking to someone right now that has these great ideas and visions of the future. It's you're actually working on it at the end of the day. And if you have, enough belief in a certain type of experience, you can actually go out and build it, which is really awesome. Do you have any other, we've only got a few minutes left to chat, but do you have any other big kind of dreams or hopes in the space for types of interactions that you're excited to see, or technology to get to a certain place for you to be able to have these experiences? Is there anything that you're kind of yearning for to exist in the space?
I guess, we haven't really talked about some of the work we did with 5G, because we did this project in 5G. And I do think that when we get to a stage where we have much faster internet, 6G, whatever, 10G, where you can there is just it doesn't matter where you are in the world, we can be together in these virtual environments in real time. There's absolutely no lag. We can have all of these inputs. We can have cloud compute, so we don't have to have the data on our phones or, on our headset. That stuff I'm really excited about, because that opens up a whole lot more opportunities for us, I think, as creators.
Yeah.
And that these social connections and these social worlds will feel so much more real when you don't have any kind of, lag or resistance, or, you know, we can just have so much more. They can be more real. So I'm excited for what that looks like in the future, and having had a little play with it, it is really exciting. Having been privileged to talk to some of the team at Nokia Bell Labs who are literally working on the next way ahead of 5G, you know, kind of stuff. It's exciting. It's exciting for not just entertainment, but for productivity, for healthcare, for so many sectors that that I look forward to.
Wow. Do you see Beyond kind of entering into those other industries, or are you focused just on the entertainment side and the, you know, entertainment and games industry?
I'm really focused on entertainment. We've absolutely dabbled in those other spaces. We've done some things that cross over, like the Breast Cancer Foundation VR project we did, which is around VR therapy. That's gone through clinical trials and has been an amazing experience where we blend those two together. But I am really, really focused on entertaining people, and these social virtual worlds is where I'm at.
No, I love that you're set on that, and you've had experience kind of crossing over, because I think that just makes your perspective so much more solid. Whereas, you know, a lot of people entering the space might be pulled in all sorts of different directions. One last question that I have is what advice do you have for people entering into the space now? You know, they could be 15 years old, 16 years old, not quite sure kind of what direction they want to go in life, but they might have that like entrepreneurial or like passion for technology like you had growing up. What advice would you have for them, you know, learning more about the space or being where the opportunities are, you know, happening, other than the expos that you went to?
Well, always just try stuff, you know, pick things up and try it and give it a go and learn, and be open to not putting a label on yourself. So try everything, and, you know, go behind the screen, in front of the screen, you know, make a game. You know, there's so many opportunities now for young people online learning. It's just a different kettle of fish from when I was, you know, in my 20s. And there are amazing opportunities in the startup space, you know, whether it's places like Creative HQ or other incubators, accelerators. Start a company, like just do it. You know, don't just talk about it, just do it. Fail, expect to fail, it's going to happen all the time. I fail every single day, and that's how we learn, and it's fine, it's good. That's a whole big part of the process. You're going to have to be resilient. It's going to be a roller coaster, but, you know, there's going to be ups and downs. But if you are passionate about, you know, doing what you want to do, then you just have to go out and do it. And like you're done with your podcast, right? It's like, just go and do it and see what happens. And maybe sometimes it'll be terrible, and maybe sometimes it won't. And we just go on a learning curve.
Yeah, exactly. And one other thing I'd like to add, which we mentioned earlier, is like Discord servers, I feel like, are popping up for a lot of communities, like the Fluf World Discord. You can, you know, join those spaces and see people interacting and talking about the next idea or the next iteration, which can spark your imagination. So yeah, definitely put yourself out there. I love that you suggested just start a company. I love that. I wish I heard that when I was growing up, because I might have, you know, done something like that, which, you know, it sounds silly, but I think you get so much experience from just going out there and going through that process and seeing what failures you encounter.
Yeah, and there's lots of support for new companies. It's harder when you get to the next stage. You know, that's when stuff gets tricky and you start employing people and you're trying to scale. But just starting it up and doing your own thing and getting some support around an idea, you know, is actually not a tricky thing to do. And there are lots of opportunities in New Zealand. Your idea, like, look online, look what people are doing. Don't be afraid to copy. Don't be afraid to like go, that thing's cool, I might try that. You don't have to be like, oh, but somebody else has done it. Like, you're not going to do it the same.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I don't think enough people like understand that as well. Like a different person doing the exact same thing will inherently be different, because it's just a different perspective of the world, different life experience and things like that. So no, that's really, really great advice. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for your time today and talking about your journey. I can't wait to hear more about Combonauts and see more of the like assets in Fluff World. That looks awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see what, you know, the beautiful art that Weta create and how you guys kind of put that into a games environment. So Really, really excited to see that. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your advice and insights.
No problem. Thank you. It was really fun talking to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I hope you learned something about game development, the games industry as a whole, or the future of games. You can follow us on Twitter at Zero to Play, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, or any other podcasting service. Other than that, you can find links to this episode down in the description below, and I'll see you guys next week for the next episode.